After not being able to fulfill my desires of wanting to work in the games industry, I started to question, well, how is it that we're having this instability? Where the hell is all the money in the world going to? Fraud, in my opinion, is a huge, huge problem within this space at the moment.
Massively.
Rug pulls, pump and dumps, shit coins. We're seeing corruption on so many levels, and people are being stung.
Have you seen Ready Player One? The movie,
Yeah.
Spielberg. Okay, brilliant. We are at Nintendo 64 of that world. But I know that in the next 3-4 years, maximum 5, we'll be at PS5 level. In the sense of you being so merged between the physical and the non-physical, right? And I'm saying right now, we're at Nintendo 64 level, but it's freaking happening.
Well, this is something, right? Do you think in the future there should be such a thing as digital anonymity?
This is such a hot topic.
How far should privacy go?
This technology makes humanity honest. It makes banks honest, politicians honest.
Well, how would you say it could potentially make people honest? Or rather, it just makes it more visible that people are dishonest. Maybe if we put it that way.
Exactly that.
And
I think that probably is a better way.
Are we prepared? Are we prepared to actually see just how many dishonest people there are? Let's talk about El Salvador, right? Because everybody is supporting the idea of BTC in El Salvador. But the first time when I saw that, I wasn't rejoicing. I think it's great that you want to take on, local people, who are 70% unbanked anyway. Great. You're going to be able to access it from your phone. Fantastic. But what historically has El Salvador been known for?
A variety of things that I don't think this experiment is going to go very well.
MS-13?
Yeah.
Barrio 18?
Yeah.
Oh, not just El Salvador now, but Mexico wants to get involved. Sinaloa cartel? Paraguay wants to get involved. You have this, I'm sure, look, there's a lot of good people around there and people want to try and take control and run it back. But you have some of the largest transnational organized crime groups
which
on
makes
the planet,
sense
which are embedded within the economy, right?
All they're doing, every single one of these countries, El Salvador, the calculations that they have run is 2 + 2 equals chocolate jello pudding, right? That's the mathematics. Because if you've got a system where it costs you $10 to send a transaction of a penny, your people can't use it. And that same system one day was $60,000, next day it's $30,000.
Have you seen some of the videos of people using the Bitcoin ATM machines in Bitcoin Beach?
No, I haven't. No.
People have gone there and they've wanted to buy $20 worth of Bitcoin. They've put the money into the machine and they've ended up with 13. You put $20 into the machine and you've ended up with $13.
No, that's the best ATM in the world, right?
What the heck? And there's only 2 of them. So what, they want to try and get more across the country?
So that to me smells completely wrong. And to someone like you, that should just smell completely wrong, right? Because the maths at the most basic level don't make sense. So what are they really up to? Right?
Well, this is where it becomes interesting, right? What are they actually really up to? And I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Bukele had armed soldiers inside his parliament, where they were signing a new legislation. And I mean, the BBC has spoken about this. He can't be technical, the tech crypto, godfather of South America one day and be a dictator the next day. Exactly. Right? Or he can't transition from being one to the other so quickly and everybody's like, fantastic, great, we're going to El Salvador.
So Bitcoin says a public ledger to enforce property rights and you own the bank and you're at the government level and you decide if you can allow someone to check out with or without AML KYC, Bitcoin as a tool to facilitate money laundering for the powers that be is amazing, right? It reduces the friction. And I believe this is what Bitcoin has predominantly been used for at the highest level and why things like Tether have been allowed to go on for so long. I'm sorry, if you and I, as two brothers from London, set up Tether, I've got a multi-billion-dollar organization, I can't audit and verify that we've actually got the money, we'll be in prison in a heartbeat.
I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous that Tether is this open secret of manipulation, which people go back and forth arguing about whether or not it's true.
Because this technology,
everybody knows,
has incredible benefits, immediate benefits to facilitate money laundering for people in positions of power.
So how do you then feel about the rise of now stablecoins in a lot of different institutions?
I think stablecoins is going to be
Is it one grand scheme of corruption?
No, I think stablecoins is going to be a thing that punches them in the nose because what it does is it gets all the banks ready to be API driven
Mm-hmm.
for a honest player to step in and say, you've got all of the right infrastructure for me. Plug. And then I set up my business to be an auditor and a regulator's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I set my business up as an example that says, come look at my skirt. Have a look at how we're doing exactly what it is that we're doing, right? Because this is the benefit of a stable coin, because I can now take the attributes of Bitcoin, meaning I can track every single cell and how every cell interact with another cell to then become the money that purchased this item, right? And now you allowing me to do that with the fiat side of things as well. So now the fiat system is not out of my control, as well as the crypto world is not out of my control. Now I compare the two like as if they are one body, one cell.
Yeah.
Right. It becomes the most hyperactive, hyper compliant system. Right.
I think you can do even more than that, right? I mean, you could even, one of the issues that you have, let's say in the space, is that you're not able to contextualize payments.
Exactly.
And so one of the ideas that I've been grappling with is, let's say the role of a compliant minded individual who's helping to create some sort of apps or something. Maybe there are some apps which, widgets or whatever else, which specifically, let's say, if you could imagine the recommendations part of LinkedIn as an app, right? And those specific messages could be written into the blockchain.
This is the word that we're going to. We're going to.
I can already tell that all of these transactions were for being technically sound, for being this, for being that. And you can actually see that. So you could immediately then say, we don't need to worry about that. We can actually contextualize all of this. We can see that this value that was transmitted between two individuals was because of an exchange on a podcast. This is a valuable conversation. I should be able to say thank you.
Absolutely.
And quantify that, right?
Absolutely.
So once you get to that, it's like, well, why would you need to monitor that? Why would that be a concern to everybody when you can generate value from being a good, honest, transparent individual? Should that be something of concern to people? But then at the same time, it's like, well, if you haven't got anything to hide, then what you're so worried about? It's like, well,
that's a slippery slope.
That's a
slippery slope. I think human beings should protect their privacy and their rights to privacy, and we should have tools that enable that. But at the same time, we need to have a transparent system that doesn't create shadows on the planet, because that's what we've had. We've got a system where there's many shadows, right? And things operate from the shadows when it comes to the monetary system today. Like, even, for instance, we've talked about MS-13 and all these drug cartels, etc. They had deals with the government in Mexico that they'll even change the shape of the bank teller window to facilitate the top sold suitcase at the time, because that's what the money launderers use. And that was HSBC Bank that got fined for that. Right?
Yeah.
So,
you can understand why they would do something like that. It's like, you either comply with us or we'll hang some more heads from a highway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
Understandably. But it's like, if we have systems where it's all effectively in one place, and this is like a 20-year, 30-year vision. This ain't going to happen overnight, right? But where it starts now isn't the individual level. Individuals still going to be confused. There's still going to be a lot of cognitive dissonance. They're still going to think that they should be their own bank. No problem. Until they do get burnt, and they will get burnt. And it's unfortunate that they will get burnt because people are sipping that Kool-Aid, right? But what we need while people are being burnt is that they're not in despair. Because despair is when you don't have solutions. There's nowhere else that this can possibly go, or how it's been done different, right? Where on the business level, with what's going on in the Bitcoin space, in the Bitcoin SV space, we'll have true business interoperability, which means that, let's say you mentioned Twetch, right? Let's say gold was stolen from the kingdom of Twetch, right? When that gold leaves, it should turn to lead. Not because the individual who stole it can't spend it if he doesn't find someone silly enough to not realize that this is now lead instead of gold, because he might find a vendor that hasn't checked the alert system that this is not associated to something that is dodgy, because we haven't smoothed that process out yet. But this is where we're going. So then you don't even need to be in communication with where this money is going. Now he's gone to, say, Handcash, he's gone to Gravity, he's gone to another vendor in the Bitcoin SV space. But because we're going to leverage the mining level and the protocol level as part of our compliance system, there is nowhere that you can go within a truly interoperable business environment that will allow you to spend that lead as gold. And then what does that do? As the cockroach is scurrying around, running around from the light, trying to find the shadow, that's time. What does time do? Gives Twetch time to call law enforcement, and for law enforcement to track that individual down, associate it with our identity, recover the coins go back to Twitch and then return back to gold.
So this can really only be effectively operated within a society which is of that sort of thinking though, right? Because you can't have the values on chain simply just be translated off chain. If you can suggest like people in other countries who are very corrupt and already have a significant control over the economy, let's say, simply because you have honesty on chain does not necessarily mean that you're going to enforce honesty in the real world.
Absolutely.
Right? And so how can you contend with those things? It's like, is it possible that the values presented within the SV sort of community, let's say, is able to translate into raising the standards of interactions between people?
Mm-hmm.
And that may not be like a short time thing. Maybe people will only feel the benefit of that as time goes on. And I suppose from one sense or one perspective, you could say that that's almost kind of been one of the purposes of religion, let's say,
mm-hmm.
to set, let's say, an acceptable rule set and value structure around how people should interact with each other.
Yeah, agreed.
Has that now translated into technology? Is technology going to be able to then bring around that next evolution to make people level up so that we have a much more of an honest system between each other?
Yeah.
Right? How much transparency can you throw onto the world to make it look at itself and not want to burn itself at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How much deadwood do you think could be burned off through the transparency?
It's a great fucking question. That's such a good question, because I maintain that technology is the liberator and will be the liberator of man. It's, in many regards, it can be our enslaver. And I think we're on a timeline where we're at a fork in the road, where supreme automation, artificial intelligence, the whole agenda could be our enslaver. If we don't do it on an honest foundation, like Bitcoin's so important for multiple reasons beyond just money, because it can actually give you an audit trail of how an artificial intelligence system achieved its intelligence, something that can't be done today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very worrying thought. So technology can be our enslaver, but a technology applied correctly, and I believe we're at this cusp now, it can be our true enabler. And it will take us to the next evolutionary step. I think the subject matter of who we are, and you mentioned religion in there, which I think is a very, very good thing to bring up, because it's all these different religions effectively try to give humanity a manual of how to be human, right? And how to conduct ourselves ultimately and achieve a state beyond, right? As some form of process of ascension, right? And
it's part of the three fallacies, you could say, right? Religion, law, and money.
Yeah.
They're all interlinked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You go back and roll the canon laws and everything else, the deepest levels of laws, which laws sort of sit on top of, and it kind of all comes back into religion. And even in the very first book of the Bible, you know, God says that there's gold in a mountain.
Yeah.
Why did God say that there was gold in a mountain, and what was it used for? I don't know. You know? So is the aspect of a financial system there from the very beginning, and whoever could dig it up was the one who's in control, maybe? I don't know.
Well, it's our way of communicating. Like I said like earlier, right? It's our way of communicating. And if for BSV, and why BSV is going to set an example, is what's unique about, I believe, this race is it's not too dissimilar to like the Highlander. I do genuinely believe that there's going to be one. There will only be one. And it's not going to be a overnight thing. I think over the next, say, 5 years, we're really going to shake out pretty much all the players. I think over the next 2 years, regulation is really going to catch up, and we're going to start shaking out a lot of the players. And it's going to hit the business level first, which is why we're seeing what we're seeing with Binance in the UK, etc. right now. That wave is going to massively continue. And it won't be noted as a BSV victory by the masses. And that's where we get a real victory, because all it is plumbing.
So why do you say Binance instead of a Binance? Is it because you think it should be in the bin?
Yeah, it fucking should be.
Binance,
yeah, it should.
Definitely.
Binance, Binance, I don't know, I change it every now and again. It's all based on like how the last person probably said it to me, and I'll just say, yeah, it's Binance, so it's Binance. Ultimately, I don't care, because I just see them as a bucket shop.
Well, it's going in the bin anyway, isn't it? I mean, it's being absolutely torn to shreds right now, you know?
And it's not a representation of what this space is and what this space is about.
Yeah.
What is unique about the Bitcoin SV space is that we actually understand at the business level what is required. And we can implement things at the business level of interoperability that affects our users, that our users don't even realize that they're experiencing really the technology. They're experiencing the benefits of the technology. It's like, oh, I can do a micropayment, meaning this service bills me by the second. And instead of paying for my Netflix subscription £10 a month, I'm only paying on my usage. That's cool. So I'm saving $4 a month. I'm saving £4 a month. That's what is important to them. Or with Gravity, I got my money there. I can actually verify that my money's there. They're audited every single 10 minutes. And I know that I'm not gonna have a Northern Rock scenario with this institution. Also, if I do want to use that YouTube service or that Netflix server that's built on this, Gravity allows these different services to stream money from my bank balance.
Yeah.
Right. Also,
it's really interesting that you talk about those sort of utilities there, because only in SV am I actually seeing real utility being built. And I know that you've met him before, but I've recently become quite familiar with Nicky.
Okay, yeah, Nicky.
And I mean, you look at something like Genuine Retweets, and he is so pragmatic in the way that he's approaching. It's like, look, if I could do this anywhere else and make money, then I would.
Yeah.
But I cannot do this anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know of many other people who have actually created a business on chain and actually be able to say that he's turned over relatively quickly. This is beyond having an exchange or something like that. He's created a business, right? And a lot of people in the space, if you have this conversation with them, they're like, what? Yeah. You've done what? You didn't buy any shitcoins and pump and dump it and make lots of money? No, I have a business and I'm having people's dinner, as you would say.
And that's what stagnated the space for 12 years.
12 years.
It's so easy to make money through the bullshit.
Yeah.
That we hit a $2 trillion market. It's now like $1.2 trillion market.
And what does it do?
Right? And it does nothing.
It does absolutely nothing.
And it's a distraction mechanism. And it actually has enabled, I genuinely believe the powers that be have allowed this market to grow to this point to keep people deliberately distracted away from understanding the true benefits of technology. Because once there's real businesses building
who
solutions.
are the powers that be in that respect? Because I don't, because you look at some of the powers that be, they simply almost regurgitating the same stuff. I don't think they really fully know or fully understand.
Now you got, say, Digital Currency Group, Blockstream, MasterCard's very involved in funding these companies. And these are like the main VCs that in the early days really latched on, create a narrative of it's a digital gold, hodl, never sell.
So like the private companies who have a vested interest in
maintaining status quo.
And
making an absolute fortune while doing so. And like, cool, whatever. That's what they've done. That's the space for the last 12 years. But it doesn't mean that the technology is not really a technology. So we've been delayed and we've been pushed back. And it's been a battle for people who have taken this route of really honoring the technology and building real solutions. But I genuinely believe wholeheartedly that the next 2 years are our years. Because this is where the businesses who are now building compliant solutions, building solutions that make the experience of what Bitcoin is plumbing in your house. And just like any good plumbing system, if I go in my house, I take a shower, I wash my face, or I go to the toilet, I just expect the system to work, right?
Yeah, that's
Only
right.
when it doesn't work, am I picking up the phone to the plumber.
That's right.
No one ever wants to pick up the phone to the plumber.
No.
You get the system installed, never call the bloody bastard again, right? That's what Bitcoin should be. But what we've had in the cryptocurrency space is everyone wants to talk about Mario or Luigi, right? Luigi's better than Mario, or Wario is better than Mario. Just like, shut the hell up. Right?
Yeah.
Because if we're talking about it, it means we've achieved nothing. Because to the person on the street, they want to come into the house, switch on the freaking shower, have a shower, and go to bed.
So how do you think then it's possible to translate the excellent work which is being done in terms of transparency and honesty within BSV to regulators so that they can say, well, we can see the standard of which you are operating and that has now set the threshold for what we expect? How are you able to translate that conversation so that they understand it, get it, and actually then have their support?
We need to show experience. And this is the next stage for us. So we're putting finishing touches to the first beta version of our solvency model, where we can literally just get it on a screen, right? In fact, I'll welcome you in to actually have a look at it. Once we've actually got it there, you can actually have a look at what it looks like. And then we start the conversation with the regulators. But look, this is actually the technology. This is what the technology can enable. This is how transparent a financial institution can be. This is how accountable we can be to our own actions, right? You've given us a framework that says, okay, you've got to make sure you have money in this place within this time frame, right? You've got to make sure you do these checks or that check, right? You've got to make sure that you monitor this hop or that hop, right? Well, we can do all of that plus more, and we could build a much better profile on us as an institution.
That's right.
Right? And our users. However, we also abso-freaking-lutely honor privacy, right? So yes, we will track it, we will monitor everything, right? And if the user ever wanted to sever the connection between us and them, they can do so because they are tethered to us. And this is what we mean by the gravity ID thing.
Yeah.
It'll be a case of...
It's interesting because everything is monitored.
Yeah.
But everybody assumes everything is monitored from a financial crime perspective. Everything is monitored first from a marketing perspective.
Exactly.
And people don't realize this. Big data is not about the investigator looking at everything.
Yep.
Financial crime investigators get the data second. Marketing gets the data first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And it should all be geared around making a better user experience for them. But also it's a monetization tool as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Because one of the things that we want to do is we don't just want to glean the monetization for us. We put you in a capsule as your identity and we honor that. So we say, okay, look, if someone did want access to your trade data and records for a survey or to aid to their data, right? They're going to pay us and we're going to pass that on to you. And we can show how that whole flow happens. Right?
Geez, I get, like many other people, I get these calls from these consumer lifestyle groups saying, come and answer some of these questions. And maybe you'll qualify. I often take the approach now saying, well, for any answer I give you, I want £50 cash paid into my account because my data is valuable.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hanging up.
We can automate these things because this is all value, and the concept of what value is fundamentally changing. And you need to have a role in managing that. And this is what this new MetaNet world is ultimately going to be. This is why we are making you an avatar to take more ownership over your value, which is
here's a question
data as well.
How much do you think your data is worth?
Ooh, great question.
That's a hard question to have. Is it pennies?
Definitely not pennies.
Is me liking a post really worth 2 cents? Or is it worth more? And how is it that you're then able to create that economy to correctly pay somebody? Oh, look, somebody's value is going to change as they grow.
Yeah.
Right? From this conversation that we're having now, I think my experience would be much more valuable than somebody else who hasn't listened, watched, or engaged in this sort of way.
Yeah, 100%.
So then how am I able to then translate that into something which can raise my monetary value behind the person?
Well, that's exactly what this space does by reducing the friction and barriers to allow markets to assess and establish the value itself, because it hasn't been open-ended before. Now it can be open-ended. So now we could be like, okay, well, we're interacting with X, Y, and Z and allow X, Y, and Z to bid directly. And we're now just a broker in the middle, facilitating the two endpoints and let the market determine. And then you say, oh, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable.
This is going to really go a clash heads to heads with minimum pay. What is the minimum pay? Right? Well, actually, it could be determined. Actually, the amount of value, let's say, the amount of work that people do, maybe it should be less.
Yeah.
Whoa. Or maybe it should be more. Maybe it's depending on, within this industry, the minimum pay should be this. Within that industry, it should be that. It can't be across the board. But then how then do you make infrastructure services like buses and everything else accountable for the amount of money that people earn?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Living standards and everything else. This is a really complicated bloody problem.
Absolutely.
Right? And if people can't make what they need to make, then you're going to do what you got to do. Right? And so, and the other thing which I really have, let's say, which hopefully can be considered within this space is how are you able to distance yourself from the past as well? Right? You have a history of being around a certain type of thing, hacking or whatever else. Could or should that be held against you? You know, maybe the regulator will say, well, actually,
now you're talking about like kind of like social ID.
This Michael Hudson guy who's building this gravity, it looks pretty good, but he was a hacker at one point. Can we actually trust him, or is there an ulterior motive behind him appearing to be honest? How can you get rid of that stigma on the past?
This is a very hot topic, to be honest with you, because you talk about basically an omnipresence, right? And I do see a scenario where potentially there could be, if we're not careful, an omnipresence, right? And this is like even could be as much as, oh, I don't like what you watched on YouTube,
Oh my God.
Right?
Can you imagine your employer saying, before we get the job, we need to have your addresses, which contain all of your viewing history?
Yeah. So this.
What kind of Black Mirror episode are you taking me into, eh?
But if you don't manage your identity, right, you can fall into that trap. The fact that there could be systems where, let's say, overreach becomes the norm. Last 2 years, like hello, with the pandemic, etc. Like it's becoming a thing, right? And this is why the more that we interact with anything, the more data we're leaving. We're just walking through ghosting data, right? And if we don't learn how to capture it, we're not going to have much of a say on this conversation. This is where people need to start being really freaking careful. It's like 1 minute you're speaking about pregnancies, and the next minute you're being advertised pregnancy tests. Right? That would literally happen. We spend the next like 5-10 minutes speaking about pink unicorns, right? I'm pretty sure we go home tonight, an ad for a pink unicorn is going to come up.
Well, I spoke about KFC yesterday and I got the app pop up like immediately afterwards. Like, this is too much of a coincidence, and everybody's experienced this. But maybe in the future, the activities of people on chain can be segmented. So is there a possibility that a certain kind of transactions between people, which generates income, but is not subject to monitoring because it's negligible, right? The activities of people online, transacting with each other, making some form of monetary value, should they be monitored within a financial crime construct, or should they just be ignored and kept separate so that as not to tie you to the individual? Or is that even possible?
Yeah, but if you talk about thresholds.
Well,
but at this scale now, like we can go down to like any scale where it can be nominal because we can break it down again to the 8th decimal place, right? So if you can do 1 penny to the 8th decimal place, well, okay, it keeps the conversation stream going because that's the reason why the penny's there in the first place, to maintain the conversation stream. But is it there to make me rich? No, right? Depends how many people you have connected.
Yeah.
Right. So overall, you still say, okay, a threshold. So if it's a 1-to-1 or 1-to-100 basic, or 1,000 people still on the same premise, I'm still not going to make a lot of money. If I've got 1 billion people listening to me at that rate, then I might bank some serious money, right?
That's right.
Again, it's always thresholds.
You're right. It is to thresholds, but I suppose you could take extreme case example and say somebody like Tommy Robinson, for example. Right? With whatever he says and people interact, 140,000 people like a post.
Yeah. Here's an interesting case to bring up, to be fair.
What do we do about the value that can actually generate and the people who have liked? Is there a group culpability which can be associated with people? Should it? These are very difficult questions, and these
are difficult human and social questions, and these aren't necessary because. But
they could become monetary. If
I 100% agree. Because
if you allow people to be able to earn from it.
If we look at the January the 6th scenario of the US, right, to storm the Capitol, scenario, the Democrats now are effectively trying to brand all people who supported Republicans, specifically Trump supporters, as domestic terrorists. That's the narrative that they're going down, right?
Yeah.
That's especially dangerous because, one, it was funded activists that done that, right? And when you can fund activists to do that, to then tarnish a whole group with a brush, that's very scary.
And although I do appreciate and agree that, we want to have this harmonious system where we are fully legal, compliant, and everything else, but what if the laws are unjust? Do we want to be fully compliant and legal and everything else when the laws are unjust?
Well, this is very refreshing for you to ask the question. So I guess let me ask that question to you. Do we want to?
Well, obviously you would say no, right? There's obviously a place for standing up against unjust laws. But if you then have a system which simply just is able to fulfill those laws in an online space, where is your opportunity for recourse on that?
Yeah.
Where is it? And this is another thing which I hope can be addressed at some point in the future in that respect. I mean, look, in one part of the world, we'll all follow the laws and we're able to go through the court systems and do all the things, and that's great, fantastic. You go to You go to Niger, are you going to have the same opportunities to do that? You go to Rwanda, you're going to have the same South Sudan, right? Where you have a lot of corruption there, you have this instability in the country. The laws necessarily don't always protect people, but there's laws there and they can be used in a certain way.
It's interesting you brought up Rwanda. I'm actually speaking to individuals very well connected in Rwanda at the moment at a very high level. Actually a place that I'm planning to go to relatively soon, because the agenda there is they want to be known as the most transparent country in Africa. And they have a huge appetite for tech. They want to be known as like a tech house and also the most transparent place to do business in Africa. And I want to see how serious they are about that, because our technology as a test bed would be amazing in Rwanda as a country.
I've actually been speaking to some people about Rwanda as well. There's a guy that I've met on Clubhouse, a guy by the name of Jeff Turner, and he's doing some very interesting work with something called the Shakti Foundation, where they're looking to implement some sort of charity organization in that part of the world. And it's, for me, through the use of charities is a really good way to prove that the infrastructure can work, because you're touching on so many different areas where, A, the donation, B, where's the money going to, was it spent properly, and what did it do in the outcome? And you can get all of those things recorded in a transparent way and for people to see it, because everybody has concerns about charities, right? 100%. I mean, it was only a few years ago where, you had all these people who were associated with the Red Cross, abusing their responsibility, raping up people before they give them food. It's like, charities. And then you got the big wigs who sit in an office taking all that money, the 90 pence out of a pound that you donate and only giving 10 pence.
Yeah.
That whole industry there, I think you'd have a lot less friction in bringing around the solution of blockchain. And once you've proven that concept, it can be easier for it to filter into other parts of the economy and society.
How would you see the best way to onboard users into a compliant system who don't have a passport, don't have a driver's license? So people in Africa, like Rwanda, these other places, right? Because we need to get them into the digital economy, right? How do we start building up a history for that individual if they don't have those basic prerequisites?
That's a very difficult question. I have no idea. I have no idea. How are you supposed to do that? I'm sure you got an idea, right?
I do. I'm not sure if I'm going to share it. But funny enough, my compliance officer came up with it.
Really?
Yeah. I was well impressed. I even gave him a hug. I was well impressed.
Okay.
Yeah, we do that here. We hug a lot. These are the things that I feel most passionate about, because I'm so passionate about setting a proper example, right? A real example, right? That we can build honest, transparent systems. But I am so passionate about the financial exclusion that the pre-existing system has done to certain jurisdictions around the world, many jurisdictions around the world, right? And how underpoverished people are, how oppressed they feel. Technology is a liberator, as I said, right? So my whole notion is, right, how can we liberate? How can we liberate? How can we liberate the entrepreneurs in Africa, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to treat them as terrorists. I don't want to treat them as criminals. I don't want to treat them as any of these things. I'm very aware this stuff happens, very aware. I don't want to associate my brand to in any of it. And I make sure from a technological standpoint, we can cut out most of it before it even remotely even tries to get through our doors. And the small ones that do get through our doors, we'll have a whole system where we could push it straight the hell back out, right? But in terms of the financial inclusion aspect, this is where I would love to see more attention from, say, regulators. Say, all right, look, we need to protect what we've got right now and make it like more efficient. I get it. But how do we make it broader? Right? How do we include more people in it? Because I don't feel like there's enough conversation and focus around that. Mm-hmm. And even if it was a case of, all right, you just got to have these limits to start off with, right? But you got to make sure you check X, Y, and Z. Fine. But there's so much weight there, so much weight and volume. I think this is where the technology is really going to show its true benefits. Because if it is a case of paranoia, which I get and I agree with, right? Well, okay, if I know every single like I keep saying, if I know how every cell interacts with every other cell in the 100% of cells, that is everything that interacts with this technology, then we can build a history. That means we can build a history. We can build a forecast. You can build an image of a man, or you can build an image of a woman.
The whole thing with Africa is very interesting because, as a lot of people know, is that, one of the big issues that wonderfully rich environment and continent has to deal with is poaching, wildlife crimes. And I remember when I was working on projects looking at wildlife crimes in that part of the world, it was told to me that an individual to kill an elephant and get its tusks or something, they could be paid for doing their activity a bag of rice.
Imagine.
Right? So
imagine.
But here's the thing, with BSV, with actual utility, the ability to, not saying that they should only receive micropayments, but the fact if they can do something and generate a micropayment which could actually support their family in that part of the world, with the amount of genuine retweets that I have engaged in, if I was in the Philippines, I would have had enough money to buy food for the week. That to me is mind-blowing. We've never seen that before in the whole of crypto. It's just the numbers go up and up and up and up, a big hot air balloon of trash. Unfortunately, you have to acknowledge it. So 100%. We talk about real solutions in that world. If you are able to provide real utility, and it's only if I believe real utility, which is going to put a curb in financial crime, let's say, because people will soon be able to have enough to be able to build, to have that base to build on top of, right?
100%,
and this 100%. Is where I, to one degree, I'm almost disappointed that many more people within my field aren't necessarily seeing the potential business opportunities, even from a compliance perspective, to be part of creating the infrastructure and framework to provide that type of opportunity for people in the future. I mean, how else? It's one thing to bank the unbanked, but great, now that they're online. Oh, well, first you've got to make sure that they have some technology so they can get online. And then once they're online, what are they going to do?
We're hitting a crescendo point where we've got Africa manufactures smartphones now. Even Rwanda, they manufacture smartphones. I know definitely in Nigeria, they're manufacturing smartphones. The Chinese have come into Africa and set up factories. There's stuff being manufactured
a lot of factories, yeah.
Also, what I find really interesting is with what Musk is doing with low orbital satellite grids. I forget what it's called. But he's set his satellite grid and he's setting more and more and more and
something
more satellites.
Linked. How long is it going to be until he bloody abandons baby Doge and all of this and he moves across?
See,
I find it so confusing.
Musk is part of the status quo cabal who is maintaining order.
Purposefully.
Musk knows 2 + 2 is 4, right? But again, chocolate jello pudding.
What benefit is there for him to maintain this?
The green energy play, in which he done. He made the green energy play. He pumped up Bitcoin, pumped up Doge, got all attention. They was like, oh, this isn't green. And what does Musk do? What's his core business? It's all about fucking green energy, right? It was a market employ. And he made a pretty packet doing so.
But he could make more in the long run if he didn't do that.
I think he's probably orchestrated in order to do it.
Do you think maybe he was instructed to do so that he doesn't face any more?
I definitely think
you don't want to go to jail, do you, Musk?
I think he's
pump this coin.
Yeah, I think he's definitely important. He was there to play his role in this whole green energy scam that they're going through. But let's not digress too much. But in terms of what Musk is doing in terms of internet connectivity around the world, the prerequisite the planet needs in order to be online all of the time, it's basically there now. And we're certainly in the next 5 years, it's there globally, completely. At the same time where we're creating hyper systems of automation, we're going to unlock an open protocol, monetary protocol, which we call Bitcoin, at the highest level and the highest scale that can handle. We just tested last month 100,000 transactions a second successfully.
That was mind blowing. I watched that whole on.
They've done 50,000 on stage, 50,000 on stage, privately done 100,000.
That's crazy.
We'll be at 1 billion transactions per second within the next couple of years. There's no problem with us processing the world's data needs. None. What we need to demonstrate is businesses that show the true utility of what the blockchain does from a human standpoint to the person on the street that changes their life. Not a nerdy conversation about Mario or Luigi. We're done.
With this in mind, how long do you think it's going to be until Neuralink connects with the BSV chain? You input that into your brain, and then as you're walking around, you're simply generating and making. Because now you're providing your GPS coordinates, so that you're helping something. You're helping advertisers to see the paths that you walk, so they will put something in front of you.
I've spoken this quite a bit, and I see it as a very, very, very near possibility.
Are you worried by that?
I am worried by that, and I most certainly have no fucking Neuralink in my head. I'm very worried about that. But again, I think this is why, for so many reasons, Bitcoin at true scale is very much needed, because I can tell you where gravity ultimately goes and what our real objective is for you to have something that simulates Jarvis.
Right. Okay. So in another way, could you say that Bitcoin could bring around the Christ consciousness?
Oof. You're getting into some big topics when we're meant to be rounding up. Like
we're supposed to be rounding up. Hey,
we're supposed to be rounding up.
This is just how the conversation goes. This is how the conversation goes. I mean, look, this is what it kind of is, right? If you have the ability to achieve Christ consciousness from Neuralink being in your brain, for you to be actually monetizing almost every single movement that you make, you're connecting within the network. You're living in a be able to access all sorts of information at a thought and monetize from it. What the hell is that?
Yeah, it becomes.
Is that not the Christ consciousness? The ability to do anything of value at any point in time?
Geez. I'm not touching this very light. I'm not touching.
You're able to interact with the potential, and because you're interacted with all information that is available, you're able to allow that potential to manifest through your physical form, and you can do anything.
I think it would be a simulated version of that, but to go down that path is an organic path. The other path is the timeline, which I do genuinely believe the planet is on, which is artificial intelligence timeline, which I would argue not to do with Christ consciousness. It's the simulation to get the same benefits of Christ consciousness, but you don't want to do the work. So you just want to cheat. It's like cheat codes, right? I don't think that's the AI agenda, but this is why I think it's really important that we do actually have the benefits of and artificial intelligence. And even that's a very silly term. It's not intelligence. I think Craig coined it as artificial ignorance, which I think is probably more accurate. But I don't think it's going to be that way forever. I actually do think that we will start to get to somewhere where I am having a conversation with a machine where at least coding on a keyboard and mouse becomes redundant, right? So if I'm building a business, I speak to the machine, it codes my shit, right? That I see happening in a not too distant future.
Like speaking as in telling it what you want, and it translating that into code and creates it.
So instead of like us building Gravity the way that we've been building Gravity with devs and doing the old school way, I say this is the concept that I want. And then it will spit out different ways of achieving that concept.
So the people who have lost their jobs, who are told to learn to code, those people who might learn to code.
Yeah, they're just building a machine that then replaces them.
So journalists, tell us what to do.
Yeah, they're building machines.
If we can't learn to code, what can we do?
They're building machines that then basically ultimately replaces them. We're going to enter a world where it's going to be agents. You're going to be coding AI agents to perform certain things and certain functions. But everything on one system means you're coordinating the accessibility of that whole hive mind accessible to any one individual at any given point of time. And that's the benefit of a distributed system. It's not decentralized. It's distributed in the sense that any human being can bring up a chair to the ring, read and write. That's what Bitcoin is. We already have that kind of with Google. The difference is Google's private. So our view of Google is to take the hive mind of the planet and they give us a search box to search it. Our search box and our screen is not what their screen and their search box is.
That's right, yeah.
Right? So they have a tap. We do not have a good enough tap. We have a low bandwidth tap, right? But they have a high bandwidth tap. Bitcoin will simulate that system, but we all have effectively a high bandwidth tap. So you could then step in as an entrepreneur and you can code a system on the same level of bandwidth, right? You can incentivize people to sell their data on the same level of bandwidth and the same playing field as what Google was doing with their ad program. And they're just extracting from us. We flip the model on its head. And once we start doing that, human being and our consciousness, our creativity is oil. It is the new oil. We can monetize consciousness directly. And now we have a meter with micropayments that allows us to price time more accurately than we have ever priced time before.
Man, the proof of work is real, right?
Proof of work's real.
The proof of work is real. Definitely real.
It's fucking great.
It's a really amazing concept, when you really think about it. And the more that I've this over the few years, over the last few months, looking at Bitcoin, I realized I didn't know much about Bitcoin. And then, I encourage everybody to take a deeper and closer look at everything and not to be ideologically possessed about which chain gives them the biggest hard on.
Yes.
Yes. You have to be a little bit more agnostic and look at what's actually going on.
Absolutely.
And weigh up what is actually bringing the best type of benefit. Not everyone's going to do that. That's fine. But the people who have the ability to create, you have to.
But your stance and your opinion is very valuable. I'm really glad to have you on the podcast and for you to bring your insight, because your insight is the insight that is actually going to shape how this space goes. Because how we interact with compliance teams, how we interact with the regulators is everything. And it's already becoming everything, right? So to hear you have the thought processes that you do, to also understand the technology and also question the technology the way that you do, gives me so much confidence, not only in my business approach and what we're building here, but BSV as a whole. I know that we have a place because everything that we have done has been to be legally and lawfully compliant. What Craig, I'll say one of his greatest achievements is he studied law. He aggressively studied law, and he took 20 years to make Bitcoin. Bitcoin came out, obviously 2009, but he started in the 90s, right?
Yeah, I was reading some articles with him at some hackathons way back in the day or something, posing as the Satoshi Nakamoto.
Studying law, really understanding regulation, understanding money laundering directives, understand like the PSD2 requirement. All of these things he had to like understand to build a system that says, okay, we can not only make the world honest, right? We can make the world really honest if you really want to be, right? And there's no reason or excuse to not implement the system apart from basically not wanting to reveal or show yourself, right? But not everyone's going to feel that way. Entrepreneurs are going to step in and be willing to be seen.
Yeah. So it's like, what is the industry? What I really hope for the future is that the industry is going to create the minimum standard for honesty, let's say, which is at par or even beyond what a regulator expects, because that's going to then set the tone for everything else. If you want to compete, you got to be even more honest, let's say, even more transparent. Man, this guy, he actually showed us everything. And it's a really cool idea. I can actually make a little bit more with this guy.
Yeah.
Or I feel a little bit more secure with this person, right? We have to, and this is where, I really hope that there'll be more engagement with compliance professionals, not simply from a point of how can we monitor this?
Yes.
How can we simply go with this level of monitoring? There'll always be a place for that.
Yeah.
But you have to evolve the thinking to say,
For me, our philosophy is this, and we're held accountable to this. Human beings, when put into positions of power, are either tempted or do abuse that power, right?
100%.
So I fully understand law and regulation is there to put frameworks in place to prevent people, when they are in positions of power, to not abuse their power. So that's myself being held accountable, CEO of this company, that I don't get drunk with my power, right? And that these systems are there that if I do, there's recourse, right?
Yeah.
So that's the huge focus, and that's what we're focused on. The second one is, okay, with that being said, let's still make the user experience fucking sexy.
Yeah.
Right? Let's make it fun for the user. Let's make it as frictionless as we can for the user, right?
There's something really interesting about playing within the rule set and excelling within that, right? Yeah. The best footballers didn't break the rules and be called the greatest. You look at someone like Ibrahimovic who studies Taekwondo and brings that into the game, and you see this type of moves. It's like, wow, this guy is sick.
I was watching his greatest hits the other weekend. I was literally his greatest hits, and
amazing.
Also like his greatest interviews as well.
Exactly. Oh man, this guy, he's a boss. He's a boss of the game, right? But people really appreciate and can actually relate to seeing people excel within the rule set.
Yeah.
There's something to be seen there. And that's why me, as I'm looking more into space, seeing the goalposts continually change, making it more difficult for people to set up, making it more difficult for compliance, making it more difficult for everything, always changing the goalposts. That's not a game that
So we can try doing, trying to continue to educate Paragon on like crypto and implementing crypto?
Of course, those conversations will always have to be maintained. But you have to just move with the times as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
It's one of those things.
Well, now's the time. Genuinely, the world is changing so drastically and quickly, and I genuinely believe that we do have this fork where I think
and it's exciting.
It's incredibly
How many
exciting.
people have had the opportunity to live through a moment in time where things are actually changing, and what you're doing right now can actually influence that change? That's exciting, man. I don't know about anybody
100%.
else, but like we're
100%.
very lucky to have not gone through a world war and have to pick up the pieces to rebuild, to have that be the change, the thing. You know,
I don't think we're far off.
Oh, geez, man.
We're definitely an
I
information
bloody
war.
hope not.
We're definitely an information war right now.
We are. I mean,
technological. It's going to be economic, and I think what underpins all of this is transparency. We've been lied to. Is the government lying to us? Is the monetary system lying to us? The pharmaceutical industry lying to us?
How the hell do you find truth in all of this? How the hell do you find truth? You know, I always used to say there's three sides to everybody's story. There's yours, mine, and then the truth, which is maybe a little bit of both merged into one to provide a whole different context. How the hell do you find truth in this system?
Well, I think a good way to prevent us having this question is let's just start recording everything, right? And that's what Bitcoin is. It is the keeper of time, meaning it is the truth ledger, right? And the more systems that we have integrated into it, the notion of what was or what wasn't becomes a lesser concern.
Yeah, so we can try and use Bitcoin to get as close to the truth as possible.
Digital restoration of the Akashic records.
Jeez.
Genuinely what I see it as being. Nathan, mate, brother, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really respect you coming down and having the conversation in person as well.
It's been fun.
I can't wait for this one to go out there because it's such a relevant conversation to have right now in this space, considering everything that's going on. And I really do think that we're having our Bruce Almighty moment. I've been speaking about this for 3 years now. The Bruce Almighty moment is when he comes out of the apartment building. He's got a banger outside and it switches into being a Celine S7 supercar, right? Gets in the car. Kids come up to the side. Oh, such a cool car, mister. Just gets me from A to B. Reverses out, bombs it down the road, hits the traffic, which is what I see the crypto space, right? Binance, Coinbase, all these fucking companies, bucket shops everywhere, right? And regulators come in, road splits.
Yeah.
And then the players who played it well, who done it right, who built technology that humanity really needed, who want to operate within the confines of law and order, we're going to have the whole freaking space to ourselves to just sprint down this highway and bring effectively humanity with us.
Yeah, plus it's also nice to speak with a compliance professional who simply doesn't want to find ways that we can fit the box, but we can actually create to be outside of the box to bring a better outcome.
100%. Love and light, brother. Much respect for coming down.
Thank you.
Right, guys, and that concludes another episode of the Bitstocks Podcast. And in true fashion, as always, peace, love, and light. Until the next time, all the best. Hey, beautiful people, it's me again, and you are now at the end of the second part of the podcast with Nathan Cropper. And if you really enjoyed this compliance chat, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that bell notification button for all of our future drops and releases. And I guess if you managed to get here and you didn't watch the first part, please go and check part 1. And as we mentioned him so much, and he seems to be a mutual friend, I definitely recommend that you go and check out the podcast that we've done with Nikki New, which is over here. And as always, until the next time, peace, love, and light.